Good afternoon. I'm Chris Kergard, Associate Editor with the Journal-Star, alongside Dennis Anderson, our Executive Editor. And the editorial board is chatting today with Rachael Parker, the incumbent Peoria County Clerk, seeking election or nomination for the Democratic Party in March.
Yes.
Rachel, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Let me start off and talk about the future with you on what sort of initiatives that you plan to bring to the office if you're renominated and get to serve the remainder of the term out.
Well, initially it's, first of all, in order to get just acclimated with the whole office, I met with each employee individually and basically sat down with them and had them tell me what they liked about the office, what they didn't like about the office, if there was things that they would like to see changed, and things of that nature. So I took a lot of notes during that time, and then I tried to implement some of that, which initially was the cross-training piece. So I guess coming in out of the gate, that was a big concern to them, and so since it was such a concern to them, it was a concern to me. And so we crafted a schedule where we could do some cross-training so that the people that are on the recorder side then could switch places with the vital records side so that they could feel more comfortable in whichever side they worked as the days go on.
You said in your questionnaire you also noticed that there were some culture issues in the office. What were those?
It's just not that feeling that it's one office, that it's still the clerk's office and it's still the vital records side. And so just trying to get more unity amongst everyone. And I think the cross-training piece is probably going to help with that. And maybe that's why it was such a concern to a majority of them that I spoke with.
How has that better served the customer?
Because when they come to the counter, for example, if I'm not totally cross-trained on the vital records side and I'm always working the recorder side and that's my day to work the vital records side, or they get so busy they need more help and they call for more help, then I'm more comfortable with helping the customer. I don't have to keep asking the next person, oh, how do you do this? Or am I doing this right? Or so it's just making the whole process more streamlined and better for not only the customers coming in, but better for them as employees as well.
Why did you have that interest in the clerk position?
Actually, it came to me because, as you know, I was a member of the county board for 9 years. This would have been my 10th year on the board, and they chose me. I got the call from Chairman Rand saying that a decision had been made and that they were going to go with me. And I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, and really honored that they'd even think of me for that because it wasn't in my plan.
Now, let me ask you on the cross-training, because I know when the offices initially had merged, that there was some cross-training, and we had heard that there was a couple of weeks' worth of time on the cross-training after the initial merger, and now you're reworking on getting people some more cross-training. Do you foresee a time when there won't just be a clerk's side and a recorder's side, but where employees are simply scheduled to work the office and you go to whichever side it is that there's somebody at the counter on? That's,
if money were not an issue, I would love to redesign the way the office is laid out, but we can't because of the structure of the building. Of course, we've got the, whatever those are called that are beams. But the way it's laid out, it is laid out in two separate areas so that when you come in, you either go to, the left or the right. But it would be nice if it could be reconfigured in some way so that we're just the office. And then you come in and whether you're getting a birth record or getting your mortgage recorded, you'd only have to go to one desk instead of having to choose which side to go to, because people come in and sometimes they're like, they're not sure which direction to go, and I don't know. It just seems like it would be a better flow of traffic with that. So I don't know how initially they came up with the way it was, or it could have been because of all the records that are there and the way it's laid out. So I'm sure they did what they thought was best at the time, but as time's has gone on, we're seeing that it would be nice to have it changed.
Yeah, because it strikes me that there's always going to be that division until you're able to get to that point, just based on what lunch table everybody sits at.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. We heard a little bit when your opponent came in to interview about some of the technology initiatives that he's worked on over the years, and I want to ask you on that because a lot more people are using the web to access some of this information. Are there any things sort of in that lane that you think you can pursue in the office?
Well, I think a lot of that has already been done, and they did a lot of work getting it to the point that it is today, which is great. And then it's just a matter of keeping up with everything because technology changes so fast. So it's just going to be a matter of making sure that we're still on point on anything as time goes on. And that's why when you go to the clerk's trainings and things of that nature, you just, keep your finger on the pulse on what's happening in other places, and then you try to stay, in the race.
When you talk with the employees, did anybody talk about efficiencies within the office, things that could make things go smoother? And have you acted on any of that?
I think I'd go back to the cross-training because that makes things smoother because you don't have that stopping where they're checking to see if their work is right or if they're grabbing the right forms or whatever. But other than that, right now, being in only 6 months, almost 6 months in, I can't see anything else right now. That doesn't mean that there isn't anything, but it hasn't surfaced.
I want to ask you something in regard to some of the outreach potential for the clerk's office, because it seems to me, just geographically based on where Peoria is and where the clerk's office is and what the hours of the clerk's office are, if I live in Elmwood or if I live in Princeville and I've even filled out my marriage application online, but I've got to come in. Yeah. I've either got to take some time off of work or I've got to race to get in to get that if I'm in some of those outlying areas. Is there any opportunity to either alter the hours, days services available, anything like that, so that the outlying areas don't have to hit that 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. window to get anything done without taking time off?
I'm sure as far as the hours, that's probably more than just our office because, we have to consider the sheriff's office with the security and that. So, and that would be an additional cost. But what I would do, and what I plan to do, is to go out to all the different libraries throughout the communities and just be there, even if it's just once a month, just showing my face and letting them know what they can do online versus, what they have to do coming in, or let them know things that they need to bring in if they're, for example, getting the real ID, what forms do you need to bring in? I like interacting with people. So for me, going out in the evenings and meeting with the different groups, Rotaries or Lions Clubs or Kiwanis, whatever, I think it would be fun. Just because that's kind of what I've been doing with economic development as my past. I'm always visiting different businesses and that, so I'm used to being out. And it would be fun. And it would help me, too, as far as getting more into the job. But I look forward to visiting, and I have already gone to some of the village board meetings and things of that nature just to introduce myself. Because like I told them when I went to Kingston Mines, and they were very appreciative that I came. They're like, "Oh, you came to little
Somebody
old
knows
Kingston,
who we are.
You came to little old Kingston Mines just to see us." But it's important to put a face with the name and to feel comfortable. And I told them, I may not be the department that you need, but I'm in the county. So call me. And if I don't know the answer, I'll find somebody that knows the answer and help you, because it just makes a difference when you know someone.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard the word fun connected to the clerk's office.
You got to make your job fun, because otherwise it's just a job. And I don't think anybody should work just a job. And that was one of the things I asked when I spoke with everyone individually. Are you here just for the paycheck, or do you really like what you do? Because if it's not what you like to do, you should not be here, because it's going to come across in your work. And so, and then, if you do like being here, what can we do to enhance it? And so that's why, our biggest expense and I go back to running my own business, is your employees. So you want to invest as much as you can in them and what they can do. And that's why, again, I'm implementing some customer service training at the end of this month. They've not had that. So it's whatever makes them better, because if they feel better about themselves, it's going to come across in the service.
What in your professional experiences set you up for this job?
I would say my history in banking. Did a lot of SBA loans, packaging for 504s, which are the larger real estate type transaction loans. So had a lot of work there. My years of being in economic development, where I did business retention visits, went out and visited hundreds of businesses, finding out what they needed to stay viable in their line of work. And just being on the county board for 9 years and the school board for 3 years. I've got the elected official background, so I kind of know what's expected of someone that is an elected official and what you have to do. And it is a 24/7 job. You don't turn it off. Even when I go places at night, I'm still promoting the county, or I'm still promoting things that don't even really pertain to me. I'll say, oh, the county has a revolving loan fund. I don't have to say that, but I do because it helps the county. And it's just what I like to do.
I want to ask you about one of those things at the county, and this is as much, closing the circle on it for me, but I first got to know you when I attended and covered some of the Minority Business Development Ad Hoc Committee meetings. What do you see as some of the biggest things that came out of that committee?
Well, for one, the Minority Business Development Center was huge because that was a long time coming. And I think it's still kind of in its infancy stages, but I truly believe that that's going to be a really great center, not just for minorities, but for anybody that's wanting to start a business, because it's really opened up to anyone. It's just kind of geared toward that because of its location and because of the fact that a lot of people on the South End sometimes don't feel comfortable coming up to the Bradley area or whatever to go to the different workshops and that. So it gives them another place to go.
Okay. What ended up happening to that committee? Because it sort of stopped meeting around 2015 or thereabouts.
It did. And I asked the same question and was told that we were going to get a new direction or a new mission, and that just never came to fruition. But yeah, it needs to be revamped and put back on the table, if for no other reason, to help monitor with the funds that we've invested in that business, and to make sure that our money that we're getting a return on our investment, basically.
Since you've left the county board, there's nobody who's technically chair of that committee now, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
All
I've
right.
not heard them say anything about that.
Okay. I want to, in fairness, ask this. We asked this of your opponent, too. What does a clerk do 40 hours a week? Because as I understand it, the union rules don't allow you to actually record deeds and don't allow you to actually, do the paperwork and hand somebody their marriage license and everything else. So what is,
Well,
is there enough to fill a 40-hour week and a six-figure salary for the position?
Well, I actually checked on that because I am a people person, and I job shadowed a number of them when I got there because I wanted to see what they do.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to learn, is by doing, at least for me. So I did check, and there's nothing wrong with me going out and helping someone occasionally if I want to, or sidecarring them if I'm just handing them the form and visiting with the customer as they are getting their paperwork together. Now, if I was to do it every single day, then there may be an issue there.
That's what I had heard from Steve years ago, was that he couldn't go out and do all of that.
You can go out, and you can do it occasionally. It's just you can't take over their jobs. But it's fun, and I think it's important for them to see that we come out of that office and do the work, because that work's important and it's fun, and there's that word again, fun. But again, I go back to, I just like interacting with people, and I can't just sit in the office. So if I'm not there at the front, then I'm going to be out in one of those communities doing something, because I won't be still.
In your first full term, what are three things that you said you think must happen in the clerk's office?
Well, again, I go back to trying to unify the office to make it feel like one, so that the employees feel like it's one office. And then I also like the outreach piece. I would really work on the outreach piece and going to the various communities, letting them know what the clerk's office does. And I actually got a trifold that I had put together. I went back into some of the, in digging through all of Steve's things, and saw an old brochure that he had it wasn't even a brochure, it was just some papers clipped together. But I created a trifold brochure that kind of tells about the office and things that you can have done there. And so I would use that as a marketing tool and go to all those communities or the libraries or whatever and just spread the word about what we do, and just make it more known about the clerk's office. Because usually when I tell people I'm the county clerk, they're like, well, I got a ticket for, whatever. And I'm like, no, that's the circuit clerk. I don't do anything with courts. So, but a lot of people don't know exactly what the clerk's office is all about. So it would be something to keep me, on the road and busy.
All right. Are there any other issues that need streamlining there in the way people do things with regard to the business under an assumed name or some of the other lesser-known clerk functions?
Well, again, that's on the website, and it's pretty easy. What I did is I went in and kind of just filled out the marriage license things all the way to the end, just to kind of see what the process was. And that's on there too. But again, people don't know, and maybe they need to be walked through that process. So again, that's all a part of telling what our office does and helping people out in that way.
Now, as far as the county board portion of this, the clerk or deputy clerks sit in on the county board meeting. They actually record the votes and everything else like that. Is that process efficient enough?
Again, I've almost 6 months in. I've done 5 meetings where I've clerked the meetings, and it's a nice system. It's just getting used to it, but it runs pretty smooth once you know what the right buttons to push.
Yeah, the automated remotes that sometimes need the new batteries.
Yeah, and someone asked me, because Steve didn't do it all the time, was I going to do it? And I'm like, why not? So yeah, I like that part of it, and it still makes me feel like I'm part of the board. So
what other advice, as somebody who's sat on both sides of that, as a policymaker and a countywide office holder, is there any advice that you would offer to the board as far as direction for decisions they have to make?
Now being on the other side, I see now that sometimes when you're voting on things, you may not know all the details. You're going to know in general things, but and then again, what's the administrator is their only employee, so that's their focus. So they can't really get in the weeds and get all the details about every single department. But maybe just visiting the departments just to kind of see what's going on and get a better feel of each one of them and then go from there.
When you've sat down with the office's budget, have you looked at any things and say, why do we do that? And you've changed things, or maybe you got answers to things that you weren't sure about?
No, actually, I did sit with finance with Randy, and we didn't go line per line, but just so that I have a better understanding of the budget. And we really do good with spending our dollars, and we live within our means. And we actually are one of the few offices that take in more revenue than we spend. So we're fortunate enough that we cover what we need to cover, and we really don't waste any fund of the county funds. So in that respect, I think our budget is great. I really do.
Now, I want to go back to something we were talking about earlier in the podcast. The process that you came to this position was a little atypical. You hadn't initially put in an application when they were seeking candidates to fill the position. There were a number of them, and the two top contenders, as you and I both know, were two candidates who have jobs within the clerk's office, had them previously and have them now, and that there was generally an agreement that there was no consensus between those two individuals or any of the other applicants on who to appoint for the position.
Right.
And so the committee turned its eyes to you as an appointee who had that experience with county government and other government service business, and asked if you would consider taking the position. And at the time that you took that position, you indicated then, and I'm going to quote from your letter to the chairman, that you would serve, quote, with no intentions of running for the seat in the 2020 election. And obviously things changed after you were appointed to the position as to whether you were going to seek to serve out the remaining 2 years of Steve's term after that.
Right.
First, walk us through what it was that caused you to change your mind from that original intention that you told board members.
Well, initially, like I said, it came out of the blue, so it kind of caught me off guard. So my first response was no. I had no intentions of running for it, not really knowing exactly what the job was. I mean, I knew what the office was, but I didn't know exactly what the job was. So, yeah, that was my kind of off-the-cuff response at the time. But then thinking about it and knowing that I'm giving up my county board position, it wasn't like I could go back to that. So I'm giving up my elected position. Do I really want to do that? Am I ready to stop and then have to start totally over because it would be another 2 years before I could run for any, if I was going to rerun for that. And then I was encouraged by a number of community leaders also to, you've done well as an elected official. We'd like to keep you there because there's really not that many minorities that are elected officials. And so, and I enjoyed doing it. So I got in there and I was like, you know what? I can do this. And so I'm qualified for it. I have the experience. And if anybody has to work for it, then yeah, I have to work for it too to get elected. So, yeah.
Have you had any other conversations with board members? I gather that there were some people who felt a little caught off guard by I don't plan to run, followed by the decision to run. Have there been conversations and sort of clearing the air sorts of things about that?
I called most of them beforehand and told them that I had decided to run because I didn't want them to
before your announcement?
Right. Okay. So I did, because I didn't want them to think I was like trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes or anything. So I wanted them to be aware of it. So I would say before all of them voted and appointed me, they knew.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything
Thank
else?
You very much.
Any other things that you want to cover that we haven't raised?
No, I'd just like to say it's, again, I'm really honored that they chose me for the position. I really think Chairman Rand is a very smart individual, and I'm sure that he put a lot of thought in it before he selected me for this position, and there was a reason for that. And so I'm just honored that I am here and hope to continue to do a good job for the county.
All right. Rachael Parker, candidate for the Democratic nomination for Peoria County Clerk. This will appear on your ballot with a parenthesis that it's a 2-year term to fill out the remainder of Steve Sonnemaker's term. So primary election, March 17. Rachael, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.